Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rob Martin. Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete, a podcast dedicated to diving deep into what makes athletes who they are. This is episode 9. Today's guest races bikes at a very high level and is part of the Orange Seal team. His accomplishments are as follows. He and Sevilla created their own privateer program when they had no other opportunities on the bike. He has 3 top 15 U23 World Cup finishes in Novia Mesto, Lenzerheide, and Snowshoe. He is a 4-time collegiate national champion. He won the Czech 40 in 2021, which is held in Wisconsin. He won Iceman in 2021, which is held in Michigan. He placed second at Crusher in the Tusher this year, which is in Utah. And he won the MidSouth gravel race this year, which is held in Oklahoma. I've been a fan since he joined the Orange Seal team. Our guest today is Cole Paton. Welcome, Cole. I'm glad to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. Much appreciated, Rob.
We're going to get started with a funny question. For Iceman this year, if these were your only bike options, which one would be your weapon of choice? An adult-sized tricycle, a unicycle, or one of those old Schwinn single-speed cruisers with a banana seat?
Oh, I'd have to go with the Schwinn Cruiser. I think it
Nice.
would float over the sandy sections, maybe even the snow. Yeah, I think that's the option.
That's funny. That's actually the one that I picked in my head after I had those options out there. I was like, and I actually had one of those Schwinn cruisers with the banana seat. I don't know if you're old enough.
I know what they are. I've never had one myself.
That was my first bike without training wheels, and my first ride, I crashed straight into a mailbox.
Good times, good memories.
Good times. I have a lot of other questions. I'd like to dive right in. So can we start with a brief overview of each of your World Cup races that I mentioned and how they went?
In 2019, I did a full season dedicated to World Cups. It was my final year as a U23. At the time, I was with the Giant Factory Off-Road team, and it was just me and another U23 rider that they brought over. I had really struggled on the World Cup circuit because it's so much about your start position, kind of this rat race to get UCI points. So I had been traveling to Puerto Rico and we did a points race in Greece beforehand just to get as many points as possible. And that set me up really well. I think I was like 4th or 5th row at the World Cups. And yeah, I had a great year. I was really happy with it. I had 3 top 15s. And more than anything, I learned so much from that team and from the riders and just the intensity of those races. Those are the races where you just can't make mistakes. When you make a mistake, your race is kind of over. I hate to say that because you obviously fight to the end, but it's not like a gravel race where you puncture and you can air it up and keep going and be in the fight for the win. At a World Cup, if anything goes wrong, you're pretty much done and you've been traveling, halfway across the world. So it's really intense. And then the courses are really intense, super technical. I'm one of the riders that really likes to ride a lot on course beforehand. So, trying to bust out 20 or something laps on these tracks and really hone in your lines and then other options in case those lines are blocked. And I really enjoyed that. It's a lot different than what I'm doing now, but I had a really good time racing World Cups, and maybe I'll be back at some point, but right now I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Can you take us through the MidSouth gravel race and tell us where the race is held, what the race course was like, what bike you used, maybe the prep beforehand, the race tactics, and how the finish went?
So MidSouth was a big highlight of my year and career at this point. I had actually been training with my coach and my girlfriend Sevilla in Girona, Spain all winter. And then MidSouth was my first race kind of back that we traveled back to the States for. So I had some really good form coming into it, but it was also not really a course that suits me. It's in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and it's just dead flat pretty much, which I weigh like 140 pounds and not necessarily the most powerful rider. So I didn't have super high expectations, but I obviously wanted to do well. And my coach, Dennis Van Winden, he was racing as well. And so it was just going to be fun to race with him because I learned so much from him. He used to race in the World Tour. And so, yeah, I went into it with not really many expectations other than just doing my best. It was really the first big gravel race of the year. So everyone was kind of testing each other out and playing those little mind games. And there were a lot of attacks. And it came down to like a group of probably 10 or 15 of us in the last 80 miles. I think that everyone kind of knows that there was a pretty bad crash with about 15 miles to go. Since there were so many games being played, people were getting frustrated and there were some wheels overlapping. I think Payson hit a rut and he went down. Ted King went down. Brendan Wirtz went down. And then the group got smaller. And Payson, he broke his wrist and his collarbone. So he was out, which was a huge bummer because he was on good form. But both Ted and Brendan actually caught back up. We kind of almost like neutralized it a little bit. And then it was a race with 10 miles to go. And there were tons of attacks. Like Brennan actually, he went down super hard, punctured, aired it up, and then caught us. And right when he caught us, he attacked. And it was like absolutely insane. So then we were all attacking, and I was just kind of like not really thinking I was going to be able to hang, but I was just kind of floating wheels. And then after probably 4 or 5 attacks, Brennan went. Pete was on his wheel. Pete kind of countered, and I had just been in the perfect position because I was behind both of them, so I was third wheel. I had just carried enough momentum that after they attacked, the field was kind of split, and I was like, okay, I got to go. So then I just hit it. It was like a second counterattack, like a long ways out into headwind. Yeah, I was like, this is so dumb. Why did I do this? But then I looked back, and I had like a 20-second gap, and then I was kind of holding it like, okay, well, I'm not just going to sit up, but like, there's no way I can do this. Yeah, then I just put my head down, and as time went on, I was just more and more committed. I was just trying to just give it everything I had. I was like, this is my one shot. When they catch me, I'm not going to have anything left, so I might as well just go. And yeah, it worked out for me, which was super exciting. I was just like in disbelief the whole time.
That is an epic race. I mean, you've got big names, you've got big crashes, people catching back up, and a lot of tactics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say, like the whole time, I was being dumb, and I would sit on the front. And Dennis, he was in the group with us, and he would yell at me like, "What are you doing? Like, come on, use your head." He really helped me kind of conserve energy throughout the race and be smart and understand, where I was making mistakes and what I was doing right, which was awesome. And he actually ended up winning the pack sprint for second, which was super cool. So we went 1-2 that day, which was awesome.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So the day was even better.
Yeah, it was good. And Sedalia was third there. We had a really good one that weekend.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Can you talk about how you and Sevilla came up with the privateer program on your own and explain some more about that?
I would say this is a really big accomplishment for my career so far, just because I don't think we'd be racing if we didn't make it happen that year. After COVID, we didn't have our contracts renewed just because there was no racing, and there was a shift in the current team that we were on. So we went into 2021 without any options pretty late in the year. It was really discouraging for me because I just graduated school, and I was like, I need to get a job. I don't know if this is going to work out. But Sevilla was really, really driven. She always is. She really like keeps me going. And she's like, we need to go all in. Like we can't just give up this easy. We have to just go all in 1 year, see what happens, and really believe in ourselves. And so I think we both started soliciting for sponsorship in like November of 2020, which is super late in the game. And we just barely put enough together to cover our travel for pretty much the whole year in 2021. Orange Seal ended up being our title sponsor, which was huge for us. And then we had a lot of other really good companies. We're not working with some of them, but Pivot stepped up. They were our bike sponsor in DT Swiss, and we still have a great relationship with them. We just are working with different partners now because we're now on the Orange Seal off-road team. But yeah, we put it together. We didn't know what the heck we were doing at all. We were contacting tons of different companies, and we had such a terrible pitch and not really many results to go off of. So looking back at it now, it's kind of funny, but yeah, it was, we were all in, and we were totally committed to making it happen. I still think that that's a really big accomplishment for myself and the both of us.
What mountain bike are you currently riding, and tell us about it?
Now we're on Scott. I kind of make this joke like I'm the biggest Scott guy, because when I was a kid, I was like such a huge Jeff Kabush and Dino Schroeder fan. Like, and they were both. That was when Jeff was on Scott, and I've always just been such a fan of all their stuff, and they're always kind of really on the cutting edge of innovation. And I would say that's very much the case with our bike this year. I'm racing the Scott Spark, which is the full suspension. This year, it actually has an internal rear shock. So they kind of hit it in the frame. It looks super sleek. The idea is just to kind of minimize the service life on it. So since it's protected from the elements, you're not having to service your rear shock as much. It's much cleaner. And they've also completely updated the geometry of the frame. So it's super slack. There's like multiple different settings that you can run it. And I'm actually running it on the steepest setting because the slackest feels like a full-on trail bike. Which is awesome. I mean, I can flip it, which I might do once the season ends, but I like the kind of the responsiveness. But yeah, I'm running a 34, which is new. Most cross-country bikes previously were all 100 mils or 32, but now I'm bumped up to 120, which feels awesome, and it's really not much weight sacrifice. We're equipped with ceramic speed bearings. They're a partner of the team, which is super sweet. I totally geek out about fast bearings and all the little bells and whistles. But yeah, we're running ceramic speed, Fox, and then we have AXS shifting. But yeah, so I'm running the Spark for full suspension, and then Scott makes a scale, which is their hardtail. Running that for pretty much the rest of the mountain bike races that I'm doing this year, because they're kind of like Iceman, Schwamigan, Leadville, not super technical. And then my gravel bike is their Attic.
On the mountain bike, what kind of tires are you guys working with or running?
We're kind of going back and forth with a few different tire options. Orange Seal has kind of given us the flexibility to run what we think is best at each race, which is awesome. I think it's super important to kind of pick your tire, and most athletes are pretty pinned down by their tire sponsor. We kind of change back and forth between courses and what we think's best. I've been running Pirelli quite a bit. But for like Leadville, I'm going to get on some faster rolling like Maxxis Aspens. And I really like the 2.4 tire width. It's just a little more volume, a little more confidence, and more grip. I know Sevilla like only runs 2.4s, and then inserts as well. I run inserts all the time just for extra protection, and so I can use a little less pressure in my tires, have a little bit more grip. But yeah, it changes race to race, to answer your question.
The wide tires. So what I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, I like the wider rims as well. That kind of make the tire less round at the top, I guess. I don't know if you've noticed that or you do that.
Yeah, our wheels are Synchro Silvertons, and they're 30 mil internals.
Okay.
And it really sets up those 2.4s wider compared to like a 25 mil internal. And you can really feel the grip. It just eats on those corners.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't run anything less than a 30 mil.
We're going to rewind a little bit. And why don't you tell us how you got started in the sport and how it happened?
My family owns a bike shop, ski shop in Washington State. That's where I grew up. And so I grew up ski racing in the winters and then riding mountain bikes in the summers. I was actually like pretty competitive runner, skier, and then biking was like my fun thing that I would do on the side. I think that I was really kind of pushed to, not pushed in a bad way, but just we would go to more ski races and more running races because my sister was also into it. I was just like, man, I hate running. I hate skiing. I just want to hit jumps. But biking was kind of like my little safe haven. Like I could go do whatever I wanted on my bike. And so that's where it kind of started. And when I started to show a lot of interest in that, my dad and my grandparents would take me to a lot of races, just kind of locally in Washington. And it was awesome, just cross country, really. And then I had my first coach, Jason Jablonski. He's now kind of like the performance director of Bear Development Team, but he really got me going into racing and kind of helped bring me to some development camps where I could meet other kids that were my age. He helped me do some races with USA Cycling in Europe when I was younger, and just be like so humbled and totally shocked at how fast everyone was. I would get pulled like halfway through the race and be like so discouraged. But yeah, that really helped me see like there's an avenue here, and this is something that I really enjoy and want to get better at. In high school, I started taking it pretty seriously and kind of traveling around the States, going to different like Pro XCT races. We had a pretty good circuit when I was in high school with like Missoula, and then there was some US Cups in California. And then really what got me going was moving to Durango, Colorado for college. I joined the collegiate team here because I knew when I graduated high school, I had to get an education. That was like super important. If I was going to race bikes, I had to get an education, mainly because my mom is such a stickler about everything. But yeah, that was our deal, is if I race bikes, I got to go to school. Fort Lewis was kind of like the place to go at the time, and I would say still is. I'd never been to Durango. I'd never visited. I was just like so set on it because there are so many pros here. Howard Grotz went to school here, Chris Blevins, Payson, Todd Wells. Like, I was like, okay, I have to go. And it really was a great decision for me. Every one of my friends was racing or, like a semi-pro or a pro here. And just having like-minded people, and like all of our social events were just rides. So it was it helped me stay out of trouble and train and have fun doing it. That was kind of where I really learned how to have fun on my bike and still race really competitively. And I'm really thankful for everyone that I met here in Durango and still train with all the time.
Do you think any of those other activities, the snowboarding and the running, do you think those translated into anything that made you better on the bike?
I definitely think so. I was a very driven runner. I hated it, but I was really competitive. And so that kind of, I think, really helped with my work ethic and just getting in the routine of training and the progression. I think it was a lot more work when I was running than it is now when I'm riding, because I have a lot more fun. That really helped me kind of hone in how I approach training. And then with skiing, I think super high speeds, downhill ski racing, I think that definitely translates in a way of just like handling a bike at high speeds and not being afraid of that. And then also, I would say the opposite in ski racing. I think I slacked off a bunch when I was racing, and it's kind of taught me like, hey, if you're more serious, then you can do a little better. And so, yeah, I think they both helped me get to where I am now.
What was the best investment that you made in yourself, or maybe a parent, family member, or friend made in you that was the most helpful along the way?
I would say the best investment is us kind of buckling down and going for it in 2021 with our own privateer program. I think I was at a point where I was almost out of the sport, and we kind of just put our heads down and made it happen. And yeah, I'm really glad we did. Brought us to where we are now, and we've met so many people along the way. So I think that was huge for me and both Civilian and I.
I'm glad you guys did that as well.
Yeah.
It's great to see you guys doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Did anyone influence you to get on the bike?
My dad was really big. He got me all my first bikes, even if they were hand-me-downs from my older sister. He really got me on two wheels, took me to races, took me out to the trails, and kind of showed me how I could do this. We had a local pro, not a local, he was a top pro, Steven Ettinger. He came out of my same hometown in Washington, was in the fight for the 2016 Olympics, multiple national champion. And I was always kind of looking up to him, looking up to another local, Tyler Farah. He won a stage in the Tour when I was younger. I can't remember what year, maybe 2010 or something. But yeah, those two were like my heroes and the only pros that I really knew and looked up to, and just seeing they could make professional cycling work was huge. And then my dad kind of introducing me to that whole world did it all.
It's good to have a parent there to help guide you that way.
Yeah, super thankful and lucky to have them for sure. Both my parents. My mom's the education side, my dad's the athletic side.
When and what was your first ever race, and can you walk us through that?
Totally. It was this race called Beasley Burn in Ephrata, Washington. I was 8 years old. There was no junior field, so I raced with, I think, Cat 3, like all ages. So I was like 4 feet racing with these huge old dudes, and which was kind of awesome because, when you're that young, they kind of take you under their wing. I did this whole series. It was called Vicious Cycles, and that's what got me going in mountain biking. To have a local series like that is huge. But yeah, I just remember like they would kind of pull me around and give me pointers in my race. And I just thought it was so cool. Like the camaraderie amongst everyone. I was used to like ski racers and runners who just don't have that at all. I was like, this is awesome. I love mountain bike racing. Yeah, I think I was like third or something. I had a gnarly crash and it was like all bloody, but I loved it. I was like, this is so cool. That was the beginning of it all. I think I did 2 more races that summer. I wanted to quit running for sure, but still did it. But yeah, that's what got me going.
It's funny. I've interviewed a few people that they used to run, and as soon as they found the bike, running was over.
Oh yeah, it ruins you. You can't coast when you're running.
Right. All right. Well, fast forward a little bit to maybe this year and think about your base building season, maybe how many hours a week you worked up to during base building in a week.
I've had like a lot different training this year because I'm a lot more focused on endurance events, and I'm in the Lifetime Grand Prix, so I'm doing all of the really long races. But like I said earlier, we went to Girona, Spain for a training camp all winter where our coach lives, and we did quite a bit of volume. I did the most volume I've ever done. It's nothing like World Tour volume, but for me it was quite a bit. I think I worked up to 26 hours at one point, but pretty consistently over 20-hour weeks. Not a whole lot of intensity, just time. I would do a lot of intervals like on the 4th or 5th hour of my longer rides just to kind of do work under fatigue. And I think that really has helped me this year, just kind of building that base and engine. But yeah, we had a blast in Spain. I mean, we were riding different routes every day. It made the hours just go by so fast.
Beautiful there?
Yeah, so pretty. Every direction you ride, you're going through like a medieval town and just like along the coast. It's just absurd. So it was my first time really spending more than a week or 2 in Europe. In the past, I'd just been over there and I'm at, a race venue and in a hotel room and then fly home. But this is the first time I really got to explore, and it was awesome. We're definitely going to try to get back there again this winter and make that our tradition.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah. No, it was great.
What recent event did you do that was challenging and fun at the same time?
I would say Tusher. Crusher in the Tusher, or Tusher Crusher, however they say it. I think they say it both ways. I actually had I had a setback this year after getting some pretty bad illness, and Tusher was my first race back, so I had a lot of doubt. I had only put in 2 weeks of training leading up into it, and I was just like, there is no way I'm going to do well here. But I had a really great race. I really surprised myself. I think mentally it was really challenging going into it. I was so nervous. I was like shaking on the start line, which is like, I get nervous usually for races, but it was a little ridiculous. Once the race started, I started to have a lot of fun. There was like over 10,000 feet of climbing, so it really suited me well. Unlike a lot of the gravel races where they're just kind of like tactics and group dynamics and lots of drafting and patience, this one was just like straight up a climb, down a gnarly descent, straight up another climb. That I really like. I really enjoyed that. And it was beautiful. It wasn't like the plains where there's just like cows and rocks. It was like, no offense to any of those gravel races, but it was like there were mountains and alpine lakes, and I love that kind of stuff. It reminded me of home in Washington, and yeah, I had a great time.
The challenging part, especially when you're coming off either an injury or a sickness, to come back and race again, that's definitely challenging. You gotta get mentally focused and mentally right after it, because there is a lot of doubt, especially if you haven't been training. So I totally get that.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that like a lot of athletes put way more pressure on themselves than they need to. With that, I certainly did. I'm thankful to have Sevilla was talking me through a lot of it. My good friend Braden was too, and my coach and team. And yeah, it seems like the end of the world at sometimes, but it turned out to be good.
What has been your most memorable race on the bike, and why don't you walk us through it?
It has to be either MidSouth or Iceman. I'll just go with Iceman because it was awesome last year. It was my first time at Iceman, and it was the last race of the season. So it was kind of a celebration more than anything. I was trained, but not necessarily peaked. I was just kind of running off fumes at that point. I just wanted to be part of the action. It's a fun race in a way that it's so fast from start to finish. And we had a huge group. I think there was like 20 of us just rolling pretty much the whole day. And there was just like attack after attack after attack, just constant action. And in a way that's like not in a course like an XCO where you're just doing laps. It's, all new terrain, rolling terrain. There was some sandy sections, some muddy sections. It was just so dynamic, and that made it really fun. The most memorable part for me was just the roar of the crowd at the end. You're just like in the middle of the woods in Michigan. Halfway through the race, there was like a drum line, like a whole band playing. It was just like surreal almost the whole time. It ended really, really well for me. But regardless of the result, I think just the energy of the event was just made it so memorable. Made it one of those events that I'm like, I'm not going to miss out on anymore. Like that's where I want to end my season every year, just because it's so fun and it fuels you for years to come, over and over again. So it was a really great experience.
There's definitely an amazing energy at that race.
Yeah, it's nuts. There's so many fans and just like riders and people that are passionate about it out in Michigan. It's like they live for Iceman whenever it comes around every year, and that's just what makes the whole sport so great. More events like that.
Absolutely. Do you think you could take us through the last mile or two of that race and what happened?
Yeah, for sure. I guess the last mile we had been chasing down this massive attack, and we'd finally caught it. I think with like 3K to go, and as soon as we caught it, Alexi and I were pretty much doing all the work to pull it back, and we were in a group, kind of a smaller group at that point, with like Kerry Werner, Brian Motter, Braden Lang. I'm gonna forget a bunch of other people that were in there, but we had a small group of maybe 10 riders, and as soon as we pulled back this move, Alexi just threw down a massive attack. And I was like, there is no way I'm hanging with that. Like, absolutely no way. Maybe I can let him swim and get him later, but he just took off. So then I was just like trying to get as arrow as possible, pulling Alexi back. I was making like no ground on him at all. I probably pulled for a mile or so. And then Kerry Werner like attacked the crap out of me. I barely could hang on. And at the time I was just like, Alexi's gone. And if I don't hang on to Kerry, I'm probably off the podium. So like I have to just like grit my teeth and hang on. And he went by me, Brian went by me, and I was just tucked and going as hard as I could just to hang in their draft. And finally I was able to recover. And that's when we came into Icebreaker Hill.
Yeah.
And right when we turned the corner, I could see Alexi just like right barely up the climb. And we came in so hot down that descent because we were all just like battling. I just got that like sudden urge of just like, it's possible. Like it is possible still. Carrie and Brian and Alexi all hugged that left side up the climb and just left the right side completely open. I had just a little bit of momentum coming around it, and I swung right, put in a super hard attack because I knew pretty much if you enter that chute at the top in first, you're going to take the sprint unless someone does something crazy. So I was like, okay, I just got to get to that chute first, and just went as hard as I possibly could, totally fueled by everyone. It is just like, it reminded me of like Nova Mesto World Cup, just a roar, like fans, line 4 deep all the way up the climb. And yeah, it was really tight, but I was able to hit the chute first and then just kind of hold my lines really quick. I came around the last corner where we turn off into the finishing chute, and I sprinted and I actually unclipped.
Oh,
And I was like, no way. I totally thought I lost it, but I was able to clip back in and put in a few more digs, and I barely got them, and I was so stoked.
oh,
Um, yeah, it was just a really great event. It was super fun.
nice. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you this year if it works out.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be even more stacked field. I think there's a lot of people coming, so we'll have a really good race there. Maybe we'll get some snow this time.
Oh, well, we've been there, done that.
Yeah, I've never had a. I didn't have a snowy experience. I feel like I have to.
Yeah, there's been rainy experiences. There's been snowy experiences. There's been all in between. The nice weather, the bad weather. So you just keep
Yeah,
coming. You'll get your snow experience for sure.
yeah, that's right. Maybe I'm asking for something I don't want, but no, it'll be fun. It seems really like rain or shine. It's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely. What ride, not a race, it could be solo or with a group, was memorable in your past? Maybe it could be an
Yeah,
adventure ride.
this one is quite a while ago, but it's one that definitely is stuck in the memory. During COVID, there was no racing, so we got to do some massive adventure rides, which usually we don't get to because we're sticking to a training plan and have to stay low or hit intervals on a certain section of trail or road. We did this. It was actually Rebecca's Private Idaho, her virtual event, where you had to ride X amount of miles and X amount of elevation. And at the time, Sevilla and I were in Washington visiting my parents, and I was just like, how can we make this the gnarliest route ever? And we did this crazy high country ride out in Washington by this remote lake where I grew up in. I don't know how, if anybody has really ridden this route. We may have been the first like through route on this because it was like an 8 hour day, like 60 some miles. I think like 8 or 9,000 feet of climbing, but super technical, like rocky. It totally just in the high alpines. We went through. We climbed up onto the top of this ridge called Nason Ridge down into this really remote alpine lake where we had lunch and like jumped off some cliffs into the water. It was all just like ice melt lake, so super cold, but just really fun. We didn't see anybody all day, and I'm not super used to that. Usually when we're training in town, especially in Colorado, it's like you see hundreds of other cyclists or hikers, which is awesome. But yeah, I love to just get out in really far remote places. And that was certainly one of those days. We climbed up onto this next ridge along the route where there's like an old abandoned fire lookout where they used to station to make sure there were no forest fires. And that was super scenic and pretty. And then we ended it with, I think, a 5,000 foot descent, just nonstop. And by the end, we were like, I want to climb again. I'm so tired of descending, which doesn't happen often. That was a really good day on the bike. I'd love to go back and do that route again.
I like adventure rides. We did quite a few of them during that same time frame over here. Just going to
Mm-hmm.
places where we've never been, spending hours and hours and hours on the bike. I
Yeah.
mean, there's something about that.
Yeah, there's no time frame. You're not looking at any numbers. You're not trying to train. You're just out there enjoying. I think we ate like huckleberries and salmon berries all the way up. Like, yeah, it was nice. It's just nice to enjoy riding for what it is.
How many years you been at the pro level?
This is like my fourth year. Yeah, fourth year. It's always hard to like know, what is the pro level and what's not. But yeah, I raced I guess like top level juniors all through my junior years, starting when I was 16, but I wouldn't really consider that pro quite yet. In college, I started racing pro with Giant. And I would consider that my first year.
Who was or has been your biggest competition along the way? And maybe take us through one race where you went head to head.
I would say Steven Davist and I are always just like at each other's throats at races. He was like my first real teammate on Giant and also at Fort Lewis College. So we've always been teammates and training partners, but like we always end up finding each other in a race, and it's like a battle between me and him, even though we're teammates. Mountain biking, it's not like road cycling where you have tactics. Your teammate is your competitor when you're out there, pretty much. He's definitely brought me up along the way. He's like kind of known as one of the best technical riders in the group. I definitely struggled when I first moved to Durango, and then, you know, kind of in my first years really chasing World Cups. And so I would always just like gap him on the climbs. He'd come back on the descents and pass me. And we always have this like cat and mouse game whenever we're racing. We ended up battling again this year at Mountain Bike Nationals. I was cramping so hard, like with 2 laps to go in the race. So halfway through the race, I was just like full on cramp mode. And Steven had caught me. And it's always just like, I'm not letting this guy beat me. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to just get in front of this guy. And he's the exact same way. But it ended up coming down to a sprint right at the line. And we came into a sprint and my legs just fully locked up. Like, I've never had it happen ever before. My calves and my quads were just like seized in the sprint. So I'm like mid pedal stroke, just locked, and sent me flying over my bike, like on the ground in the finish chute in front of everyone. It was more just like, seriously, this happened right here. Like, come on. Like, I couldn't get off the ground because my legs were locked up. But yeah, Steven got me. So he's up 1 on me. I'm coming for him in Leadville.
Someone didn't save you with some pickle juice at the finish line?
No, I was done. There was nothing saving me. Yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, we live to fight another day.
I'm sure he'll listen to this and he'll get that memo.
Yeah, I'm coming for him.
Why do you love the sport and what keeps you going?
I just love riding my bike. It's just kind of, you know, my escape from everything. I can, I'm having a bad day, getting on the bike always makes me feel better. And I'm fortunate that it's my job. I think a lot of times it's easy for me to get caught up in training and performance and everything. But when I'm on the bike, everything's good. And that's why I love it so much. I think especially my mountain bike. riding my gravel bike can get a little monotonous sometimes. Yeah, this last little block of mountain bike racing has really made me enjoy every day. And yeah, also Sevilla pushes me to be the best athlete that I can be, and she really keeps me going too. So we have a good relationship in that regard.
That's good to have someone else there with you along the way during the journey. Yeah,
definitely. And it's hard because it's like I don't do much in a day besides train and eat and sleep. So I'm glad that she understands that. It's a pretty unique lifestyle, I guess. So not normal, but yeah. She totally understands. She does the same thing. So we're both usually on the couch, totally clapped out, trying to recover together and rest and repeat every day.
That's the life of the elite, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you incorporate any strength training into your routine ever during the season, off season, base building?
So I used to do a lot more strength when I was doing cross country, just because those courses are so demanding and aggressive. But I've done a lot less this year since now I'm doing more endurance stuff, and it's not as physical. It's more just about your stamina. But the one thing that I do incorporate is like an activation routine before any intensity. So anytime I have like an interval workout, I'll do like 12 minutes of just core and like body activation right before I head out on my bike. And all I use is really just like an elastic band around my knees. I do like some squats, some planks, sit-ups, push-ups, a lot of glute activation. And that's really all I do. I've really noticed that it helps kind of get the body going to put down power right away. And I also do it when I warm up before races. I'm always doing this activation routine too. But yeah, I feel like I've lost a lot of muscle, upper body and core strength. I used to just do so much of it when I was racing cross country. But that's kind of my routine now.
If you had an A race week, what would that week look like training wise? How many days off? How many days are you on? Do you do openers?
It's kind of different race to race, because if I have like an XC race, for example, which I only have a few of those this year, I'll try to keep it pretty light, like not too many hours, maybe 10 or 12, but really get out on course and find my lines, try to find some trail speed on the course too, hitting things fast. And I really like to do a hot lap just to see what it's like to race one full lap at speed. That usually sets me up well. But for these gravel races and these longer mountain bike races, it's more just like recovering. I'm doing this new thing where I just ride off sensations, like the day before I race or the day before I have a hard workout. My coach calls it a warm-up ride. So I literally just do whatever I feel like I need to do to make me prepared for the next day. And I think that there's so much to gain from that, because if you have like a specific training plan and there's other things going on in your life, you're not adapting to that. So like, let's say I don't sleep well and I'm feeling tired the day before my race, I'm going to take it easy. But if I'm feeling great and I want to give it some gas, then I will. And that'll open me up well, because I can adapt to that and I'm able to do that work. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't really have a very concrete answer, but I do ride off sensations a lot, a couple days leading up to an event. Usually I'll do a longer ride earlier in the week, like a longer and harder ride on like the Tuesday or Wednesday before a weekend event. But I'm really not putting in a whole lot of hours. I'm trying to taper.
I kind of like that idea, the sensation, how you feel.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, because if you don't have good night's sleep, I mean, if you have really bad night's sleep, you might not be mentally ready, and your body might not be ready to do that. If you have a hard workout planned, and then it's not going to do anything for you. Kind of a waste.
Yeah, it's burning from both ends. I mean, you're probably stressed about like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do these intervals or whatever. I'm not going to be recovered for the race. So yeah, I think I've really gained a lot from just listening to my body, and I'm still trying to do it. I think a lot of days I go too hard still, but yeah, Dennis is really helping me with that.
Let's touch on recovery. And do you do anything, any devices, any exercises like yoga, stretching, massage, percussive therapy, foam rollers, compression?
This is another thing I've changed a lot this year with Dennis's oversight. I think I would be like Sevilla and I both, mainly Sevilla, because she's such I call her a tweaker sometimes. She's just like, how can I train harder? How can I do this? She's going to be pissed at me for saying this, but I used to like stretch, foam roll, use the massage gun, like do everything in the book to recover. And I think I was just overdoing it way too much. And Dennis has really taught me, like, you just need to sit on the couch and like check out and relax. And that's how you're going to recover. I'm like, that's music to my ears. I can do that. But I do, I have a set of Normatex, so the inflatable boots that help flush lactate out of your legs. And I use those often, but I mean, honestly, putting your legs up against the wall, it kind of does the same thing, just elevating your legs and getting the lactic acid out of them. Before that, I'll usually take a massage gun and kind of flush everything, get everything rolling, but really lightly. I have like a hyper ice massage gun, and I use it on the lightest setting, and even sometimes that feels like too much. I really don't go too hard, and everyone's different. But yeah, if I massage or foam roll too hard, I'll notice that I'll be sore for the next day, and that's not going to be helpful. So I just try to lightly massage, sit in the boots, and relax and hydrate a lot. Hydration is huge in the recovery process.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of the couch, maybe with compression boots for a little bit, but staying on the couch or a recliner
couch
chair.
Time. Yeah. Couch time is a thing. It's important. Couch time and sleep. I mean, sleep is somewhere where I really struggle. I'm not the best sleeper, but that I've noticed like a very direct correlation between my performance and my amount of time I'm in deep sleep or REM. And I'm not sponsored, but I use Whoop. I'm have this thing on all the time and looking at it. Dennis is looking at it all the time. I think it's really valuable data. And mainly it just kind of holds you accountable, when you don't sleep. If I don't have a good night's sleep, I won't do a hard workout because it's just putting too much tax on the system.
That makes sense. I should probably pay
Mm-hmm.
more attention to I have a sleep app that does tell me how well I sleep. And
Yeah.
maybe on those days when I wake up and it shows that I had really crappy sleep, I probably should do the same thing and just skip it. Maybe just do a nice
Yeah,
easy ride instead.
exactly. Yeah. You got to listen to your body. That's something that's like the best advice I've ever gotten is just like, you got to listen to your body. Everyone's motivated and everyone can train hard, but not everyone can recover well and be smart about it.
No, I know a lot of people that don't.
Yeah,
Hard
I'm guilty.
every day. Go hard every day.
Right.
No, no, don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it won't make you faster.
No. What types of supplements or hydration do you use pre-race, during race, and then maybe for recovery?
This year we're working with the feed, which has been awesome. So I've been able to test out a bunch of different stuff. And I actually have different protocols depending on, the length of the race or the temperature or the elevation. So everything changes, which is kind of crazy. But I would say like my most normal supplements that I use, I actually have it. They make these formulas on the feed where you have every vitamin and supplement that you need. They come in little packets and I take those daily. When I got super sick, they have like a gut health formula for probiotics that I was taking, and that really helped me. So those are like my daily ones. I'm also taking beta alanine. It's kind of like a lactate buffer. And then for pills, that's all I take. For like fuel on the bike, I'm really enjoying and I really believe in Never Seconds product. I think that they have the best carbohydrate ratio, so I use their gels in every race. They also make a drink mix, but I kind of struggle with high carb drink mixes just because I'm kind of like a guzzler when I drink, so it can really mess up your stomach if you're pounding stuff, and also like you're not actually hydrating, you're kind of just like eating liquid food. I prefer to stick to their gels, and their gels are really high in carbohydrate content. They're 30 grams each, so I try to aim for 3 of those an hour in a race, and then I'll usually do like scratch in my bottles or bladder and a liquid IV. That's kind of like what I've found to be the best electrolyte drink for myself. And I use Run Gum. It's this caffeine gum, and that's what I use for my caffeine. I get the extra strength, so there's like 2 pieces in there, 100 milligrams of caffeine each. So I usually take that if it's a short race, right before the race. If it's a longer race, I'll take it when I'm feeling like I'm about to die and chew on that for a few minutes and feel like I'm unleashed and ready to go again.
And that's just
So
called Run Gum?
yeah, Run Gum. It's really effective. I use it on all my high intensity workouts and races, and it just comes in this little package, and I just put it in my jersey pocket. Another thing I race with is a hot shot. It's like this little shot of fluid, and it's for cramping. It didn't help me at Nats at all, but sometimes I hope that it's going to help me, and it does. But yeah, that's another thing I'm usually carrying. Another, I have so many different things I use. Another thing I like, Sis makes these little blocks. They're called Beta Fuel blocks. They're like half the size of a Cliff Block packet, but the same amount of carbohydrate. So I carry those on the longer races, and I'll usually alternate between Never Second gels and Beta Fuel blocks, just because I don't want to get palate fatigue, and it's nice
Yeah.
to mix it up.
Anything post-race? Food or recovery stuff? Or hard
Yeah,
workout?
super, super important to get carbohydrates down within 20 minutes of any hard workout or race. So I'm always just like anything that has carbs really. If it's like 2 or 3 bananas, whatever you can get your hands on. My favorite is actually like juice. I just drink juice because you're rehydrating and you're also getting carbohydrates. And then trying to have like a meal with protein within an hour, but it's not super critical. It's most important to get your carbohydrates down within 20 minutes. So that's my routine.
And that's kind of changed, it seems, a little bit. I think people used to think that you had to get that protein ASAP when it's really the carbs.
Totally. Yeah. I don't even take protein. I don't even own protein powder or anything. I
I
just,
don't even own it.
yeah, I just eat a protein meal within an hour and down some cherry juice right after my ride.
Speaking of ride, what's your favorite interval workout to do on the bike? Something shorter, something longer?
Yeah. I love short stuff. I love just going like totally balls out as hard as I can and dying, which I'm not actually doing a whole lot right now. So I think that's why I say I love it so much. If I were doing it, I'd probably say I hate it. But yeah, I've been doing all these long intervals and like I'm so tired of them. But yeah, I have this workout where it's just like 1 minute as hard as I can. And then I try to hold that power for 5 or 6 more minutes at 1 minute. And then I do the same at 30 seconds as long as I can. I love doing that, just going all out and kind of like that super high intensity. I like the sharpness of it. Right now, I'm doing like ride 5 hours and then do sprints. Those are just brutal no matter what. They're just
Yeah.
like, you get to the end of the ride, you're like, I really have to do this. Yeah, they're effective, so I'll keep doing them.
Those sound brutal for sure. I'd rather do the 1
Yeah.
minute efforts all out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then ride like technical trail. Yeah, I love that. I love doing
Yeah.
like a super hard sprint and then immediately following like a really technical descent, trying to just, catch your breath and focus and ride good lines. I think cross country training is the most fun for sure. But
I agree.
yeah, I love those workouts. And then doing them with a friend too is really, really good. Someone that's pushing you.
Absolutely. If there was one race you could do over, what would
Mhm.
it have been, and what would you have done differently?
I think it would be rule of three. This was a gravel race in Bentonville, Arkansas that I did this year. And it's just super technical. Tons of rocks in Bentonville. They have those really sharp, like flint rocks. And this race, I think there was like 20 miles or something of single track, like something ridiculous, which was awesome. And I was super stoked for it. But I definitely rolled the dice and ran way too narrow of tires. And yeah, I mean, it was my mistake. I just like, I thought I could get away with it. And I ended up puncturing like 10 times. I think yeah, it was not a good day. Not a good day. But the other thing was I think that I picked up a bacterial infection at that race because it was super muddy. We were riding through fields like next to cow pastures and everything, and
Oh.
I had it all over my bottles, and I was chugging it, had mud on my face, and anyway, that put me out for a good month and a half. So I'd ride with a snorkel next time and thicker tires, something like that.
Snorkel.
Yeah.
We went to Bentonville for the first time, probably, I don't know, just a guess, 4 years ago, and we had a group of about 70 of us. And I think over the course of 4 days, we probably had 60 flat tires.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It is crazy there. It's amazing if you can keep air in your tires. So
Yeah.
I think everyone in that race punctured. I definitely was probably one of the most punctured riders, but yeah, yeah, it happens, and yeah, equipment choice is everything. I think I've learned my lesson. I also punctured out of Big Sugar, that fall, so it was just like I need to use my head more. Thicker casing, thicker tires, and maybe like not charging into the rocks as much,
Right?
but
Yeah. Well, I
it's
think
all part of it.
when I think back to Prescott, I remember Brian Motter told me, go on the trail and learn the lines so that you're not hitting things that you shouldn't be hitting. And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of, it's tough when you don't have a lot of time, but I think that's, like you said, you like to go to a course and ride it a lot of times so that you know where you're going, and so that you don't hit that rock to get that puncture.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, previewing a course and really like learning it, making sense of it, that could totally change things. So
Yeah.
I think it's important. But it always comes down to that race and you're following someone way too close. you don't see a rock or something. And that's where you also need to just like cool it for a sec and yeah, ride in control. I'm
Yeah.
still learning that.
Do you do anything pre-competition to get yourself ready for a race? Any mental visualization, music, rituals, routines?
Really, I try to just take my mind off of it, especially the day before. I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in it when you're at a venue or pre-riding a course so much. It's like all you can think about, and I've learned that that's not super helpful for me to just be like all just totally focused in on it. But then like the day of, definitely like to kind of get in the zone. I have like a playlist that I always listen to. And something that I've been doing recently is just rewatching like clips of races that have gone well for me and kind of like, yeah, I did that. That's good. I can do this again if I did it there. And that's really helpful when I get really nervous because like no matter what race you're at, you're always going to have doubt. And that's what I'm learning a lot is like everyone has doubt going into a race about something. And if you can just kind of kick that in the teeth, then it's going to be a lot better. And yeah, think about those days where you had really good experiences and try to get in that mindset and channel that energy.
I like that rewatching good races. I think that's a good
Yeah.
one. Or even thinking back to the good races, right? Because if you can't watch it, you can always think back like, what, this was a great time on the bike. I had a good race. Just, I think that's a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Like visualizing, how it felt, how your tires were hooking up that day or, how you made that attack or close that gap or anything like that. There's little triggers that can help you remember those feelings, and they're super helpful when you're nervous or getting ready to race.
What other events do you have upcoming on your calendar this year? And maybe explain a little bit about each one or a couple of them and where they are.
Yeah, so we're kind of like halfway through the year. I am in the Lifetime Grand Prix, so we have three more events at this point. My next big one is Leadville 100 in Leadville, Colorado. I just actually kind of pre-rode that course in 3 days. It took me 3 days to pre-ride the course, which is ridiculous. It's a 100-mile mountain bike race. I think we climb 13,000 feet and up to 12,500 feet of elevation, which I don't think should be allowed. I don't think humans should be riding bikes that high, but we are. We're doing that. I'm actually really excited for it. I've been training a bunch here in Durango and trying to get up to high elevation and doing intervals. So I'm excited. That one is a big goal on my calendar just because it's such a marquee mountain bike event here in the States. So yeah, all in for that. But then the very next day we drive, or that the day after, or the day of the race, we drive to Steamboat because I'm doing lead boat. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea, but I am. So I race Steamboat Gravel the following day, which is like a 140-mile gravel race, which is one of the longer gravel races for sure. I'm mainly excited because Dennis is coming over from Europe to race that one, and we'll be racing together there. Or maybe I'll just be like hanging on for the first hour and then drop. But I'm excited to see him, excited to race with him there. And then I actually have some time off. I'll go home to visit my family in Washington and train up for Schwam again. That'll be my race in September. So that one's really fun. I love going over to Wisconsin. I think like it was such a beautiful time of year last year. The foliage was out. That's a lot shorter, so I'll be able to do I'll have to kind of tune the engine to do some shorter, more intense stuff, which I'm excited for. That's a lifetime event as well. And then we have Big Sugar, which is in Bentonville, and that's kind of like the finale for the Lifetime Grand Prix. And that's I think 100-mile gravel race. And then top off the year with Iceman. So
Nice.
back to Michigan, season ender there. It'll be a nice celebration of the year, and then hit off season and yeah, rebuild for 2023.
How's the terrain in Wisconsin?
I think it's super fun. It's like it's on that I don't remember the name, but it's on the really famous Nordic skiing track.
Yep.
And it's like really rolling, another super fast race. Like I think we did 40 miles in like an hour 40. So we were above 20 miles an hour average, and just like tight, like corner, really fast corners up and down. Like it's not like when you pre-ride it, you wouldn't think it'd be a technical race, but when you race it, holding speed through all the corners definitely pays off. So it's kind of like a Formula One mountain bike race. I think it's awesome. I love it, and there's
Huh.
tons of people at it too, which is super cool.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, you should come out. It's not too
Maybe,
far, huh?
right? No. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Yeah, no, it's a blast, and there's thousands of people that come out and race, and it's in a really small town, which I love. It's really cool, and there's tons of lakes. I remember, which was awesome. You guys are used to that over there, but I'm not
Yeah.
used to it here. So yeah, it's really pretty. I'm excited for that one.
If there was one trail you could recommend in the whole world to ride, what would that be that you've ridden?
Ooh, I would have to say Froyne Canyon in Leavenworth, Washington. I say that because this is the trail that I grew up riding. I would say it's still my favorite trail.
Okay.
I it was like one of the very first mountain bike races I did, and now since I've left, and every year I come back, there's like another new trail that comes off of it. So now it's like it was the only trail that I had growing up, and now it's turned into this small network, which is super cool to go home to and enjoy. It's called Ski Hill in Leavenworth, Washington, and yeah, I would recommend it highly to anyone.
All right. I put it on my list.
Nice, you're gonna have to go out there.
Can you tell us why Durango is such a great place for mountain biking and training?
Right now, I mean, the elevation is huge. If you're not training at elevation, it's a massive disadvantage when you go to a race at elevation. So I've had this block of races at elevation, Tusher, Nationals, now Leadville and Steamboat. And I kind of am like, I cannot be anywhere under like 6,000 feet. It's just, it would not be good for me. So that's the first thing that's really good about Durango. The second thing is the trail access from town. There are hundreds of miles of trails from town, and I have never driven to a trailhead here, which was totally different for me coming from my hometown in Washington. It was very normal to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to a trailhead. But here, it's like right out the back door, you're hitting single track. I have like a 2-minute spin from my apartment, and I'm on single track. And that's just huge. It's like you don't have to plan your day. I might sound lazy, but it adds up, like loading up a vehicle and everything. And so just the trail access is huge. Also, the technicality of the trails here have really helped me progress. I was used to riding smooth, like pampered trails in Washington because I was from Central Washington, and yeah, which is awesome. Like the trail builders there are awesome. They make super fun trails, but I didn't get that super technical terrain, like natural terrain that we have here in Durango, and it's everywhere. There's very challenging trails, and so that's brought me up a lot. And then the people too. There are so many pros that live here. It's like you don't ever have to train alone, and I'm very much a person that benefits from training in groups and training with friends and having people that push you constantly. You can learn something from everyone, and that's been massive for me here in Durango. Is just like someone's going to be faster than me in every section of this trail, on the ups, on the downs, on the flats, and just learning from them and challenging myself every day in training. That's what makes it like one of the best places for me to be to prepare and train in season.
For me, what sounds like a dream is the walking out the door and there's trails everywhere. And
Yeah, I
I load
know.
my bike up and I got to drive at least a half hour to a trail, and that's a half hour back. So there's
Yeah.
over an hour of time wasted right there. And I'm, I'm to the point where I would love to have something where I'm just there and I can walk out the door and I'm on single track.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. It's like I kind of take it for granted at this point. But yeah, when I moved here, it was just like mind blowing. And there's so many networks in town. And the really cool part is like each little network has different terrain. Like we're kind of on the line of like high desert and like high country forest. So each direction you go, there's like, it's like trees or rocks or shale. And you can like connect all of them and train in different terrain in one ride, which I think is like encompasses mountain biking completely. So it's super fun.
Yeah. I think we've been to Colorado quite a few times for vacation, and I think Durango might be next on the list to check that area out just because of what I've heard. And then you're just reiterating it.
Yeah, it's definitely a place to check out. It's definitely isolated. Like we don't have any very big towns around, which is kind of cool. It's a spot to ride. If you're a mountain biker, you definitely gotta come out here and check it out.
If you were to give advice to the young athletes out there that look up to you guys, what would it be?
Don't take things too seriously. Enjoy your time on the bike and try everything out. I'm still trying out new things right now. I'm 24 and this is my first year doing these endurance stuff and it's been really fun. So I think like not limiting yourself to certain events and also like finding good ride partners to make things more enjoyable and not going full gas every day, recovering a little bit. Yeah, I think those are like my big things that I've learned that really make a difference.
I'm going to have to agree with that. I second that. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
No, I think we covered it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hope to see you in Schwam again in Iceman.
It's on the calendar. I've never done it before, but this year I put it in the schedule just as a maybe. If it works, I think I'm going to go do that one this year.
Nice. That'd be awesome. Yeah, you'd enjoy it.
Well, Cole, much gratitude for coming on to the podcast with your busy schedule. I also want to thank you for being an awesome, down-to-earth dude. You took time out of your day in Prescott to make sure I didn't get lost on my pre-ride, and you took time out today to share your story. I'm excited for you in the future, and I can't wait to continue to follow your journey.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And Instagram. You have just listened to Unpacking the Athlete.